All right, everybody, and good morning. This is Christopher Guzman. Unfortunately, I've had to activate Plan B and record a lesson for today's weekly live class, as unfortunately my internet, right on schedule, just in time for the class, has decided to act up. So, sincerest apologies to everyone who was just in the room. We have now lost all of you, and I think at this point I'm just going to stick to recording this video now and sending it out to you, rather than trying to wrestle with the internet and sort of wasting time with dropping connections and reconnecting and all the rest of it. So not going to waste any more time on that. I'm going to just jump right into the lesson that I had planned for today. Now, I wanted to talk specifically about the advanced patterns, okay? And so we're going to go ahead and look at lesson 9. This is lesson 9, advanced patterns, okay? And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because there's a beautiful, beautiful example of exactly this that we see happening, or just recently happened in the market, okay? And so I'm going to go ahead and open up my pro pages, because this is what I was looking at. It's one of the things I was looking at. And so let's just give this a second. Now, in this lesson, I'm going to show you, what it is I'm looking at on I believe it's the pound Aussie that we, had touched base on in the pro session this morning. And it's a head and shoulders pattern, okay? And in this lesson in particular, I want to talk about the difference between a head and shoulders pattern and a king's crown formation. Now, a king's crown formation, in my opinion, is a lot easier to learn. It's certainly a lot easier to teach. And the reason for that is because a king's crown formation is based on a set of steps, right? A series of steps that the market has to go through in order, for us to call it a king's crown formation. Okay, there are 5 steps in total. And so let's just review them quickly before we go into back into the market. So, and I'm going to show you an example of a king's crown that I'm looking at, and I'm going to show you an example of the head and shoulders, like I said, which I believe is on pound Aussie. And so, king's crown, okay, 5 steps, like I said. Step number 1, the market has to break the trend line, right? That's step number 1. Market has to break the trend line. Step number 2, the market also has to take out the most recent A. Now, if we just get a trend line break without the market taking out an A, then obviously, this isn't a crown, it's just a trend line break, which is very common, right? But the minute we take out that A, and it can be a sub A as well. If it's a sub A, it just means that it's a sub crown, right? But the minute we take out that A, whatever it is, whether it's a capital A or a sub A, we know that we're looking at a crown, okay? And so step number 3 is we have to identify the left tip, which is really just the previous B, right? So from where the market took out the A, that's where, that's our starting point. And we're going to draw a diagonal line, okay, up to the previous B, and that's going to be our left tip. All right, and that's going to lead us into step 4. Well, it's actually still part of step 3, so we'll call it 3A, right? Because the idea is to identify the previous B, which is the left tip, and then project the right tip. And so what we're going to do is we're going to first put in a diagonal line to identify the previous B, and then from that previous B, from where that's located, we're going to put a horizontal line in place, and that's going to give us our projected right tip area. In other words, our sell zone, if we're looking at a bearish crown, which of course we are in this example. If we're looking at a bull crown, then of course the opposite is true. Rather than the projected right tip being a sell zone, of course it's a buy zone, right? And so step number 4 is we're going to spread our new Fibonacci's from the high of the center tip to the low which took out the A, the first official low that took out that previous A. And as we know, of course, from our lesson on Fibonacci's, we know that the market moves in a 4-stage wave cycle, right? A, B, C, and D. And so C becomes A and D becomes B once the cycle hits its anticipated D extension and fulfills it, right? And we move on to the next cycle. C becomes A, D becomes the new B. And so in this case, we're looking at the market taking out this C, which became the A, and then identifying the left tip and projecting the right tip that way. So what we want to do is we want to spread these new fibs from the high of the center tip, okay, to the first official low that took out that previous A. That's our new AB boundary. That's our new King's Crown AB boundary, okay? And then with step 5, we're going to look for an entry opportunity to sell at one of the new Fibonacci retracement levels, of course, in a bear crown. In a bull crown, once again, the opposite is true. So just flip it, right? Instead of selling at a retracement level, we're going to look to buy at a retracement level. Okay, and then the idea here is, we're going to try to take advantage of one of these Fibonacci retracement levels and target, of course, the appropriate anticipated D extension. And so those are the 5 steps to a crown. Okay, of course, a bullish crown is exactly the same, just going in the opposite direction. And like I said, rather than looking to sell, we look to buy. Now, the example I'm going to show you in the live market here is a bull crown. It's a sub-bull crown, and I'll show you that. But I do want to have a look at the head and shoulders as well, because a head and shoulders, the reason a head and shoulders is a little bit more difficult to learn and certainly more difficult to teach is that there aren't 5 steps to a head and shoulders, right? And with a head and shoulders pattern, mainly you're relying on your spatial ability. In other words, your ability to read the charts and to identify common areas and to kind of visually see things that aren't, already drawn out for you, right? And so, again, unlike with a crown where there's, nice clean 5 steps to follow, with a head and shoulders, it's a bit more difficult because realistically, the only way you're going to really truly learn head and shoulders properly is to experience them again and again and again. Okay? And so that's why I thought it was so important, because I've gotten some questions lately regarding the King's Crown and the head and shoulders. So I thought it would be great to cover in our lesson here this morning. So the first thing I want to show you is the head and shoulders pattern. Now, the one I'm referring to happened on the Pound Aussie on the 15-minute time frame. Now, these, of course, are our Kickstart Pro morning session charts, right? And so on this 15-minute time frame, back on Wednesday of this past week, we had identified a head and shoulders pattern, a potential head and shoulders pattern. Now, why is this a potential head and shoulders pattern? Well, if you take a look, if I just remove the actual drawing of the pattern for a second, okay, the first thing that I'm noticing is that the market is forming these highs, okay, in a similar, at a similar level, and even that's not really the best way to describe it. It's really more a case of, we can see these highs forming, and I can just see the line, right? So if I just remove that line, right, I can see the line of resistance, right? And that's all a neckline really is in a bullish head and shoulders. It's just resistance, right? So if I go ahead and put that line back in, right, we can see here's a high, here's 3 highs, right? And then here's another high. And in the process, what did it do? Well, it first came up, made that first high, and then fell and created like a little cup in here of low, right? That's the best way I can really think to describe it. Then the market came up again, hit this level roughly again, gave a new set of highs, in this case 3 separate highs, then fell again. The second time it fell deeper than the first time, and the low that was created as a result was deeper than that first low. Okay, so that's kind of the first telltale sign that what I'm looking at here is a potential head and shoulders. The third thing to look for to basically confirm the suspicions, right? Because right now, at this point, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, well, this has the potential to form a head and shoulders. If the market, and when I say that, I mean, you know, back here, right? I'm saying, right, this has the potential to form a head and shoulders. And so at this point, I can kind of, you know, come in and put this little line in here because I can already see, I can already anticipate and identify that this is a level of resistance that we're seeing, right? Again, because of those highs. And so at this point, I'm already suspecting, right, okay, you know, there's a chance that this could turn into a head and shoulders pattern. So what I need to see is for the market to touch this line again and give me another high. And if I get in closer here, you see that's exactly what it did. It came right up and right inside of this region here, right where all these other highs are forming, it gave me a high, right? And so now the trick is, if the market forms another low, but this time the low is higher than the center low, right? So this low is higher than the center low. If that's the case, then what I'm looking at is more than likely a head and shoulders pattern, okay? And so if I just come back a bit, okay, and put that pattern in there, right? Because you can see left shoulder, head, and then the right shoulder. Now the whole idea here is, you know, when we're looking at a head and shoulders pattern, we're not looking at a full-on reversal pattern as we are with a King's Crown. In other words, we're not looking necessarily at a reversal of the trend, right? The King's Crown is the end of a trend and the reversal of a trend because the fibs are no longer working, right? As long as a trend is valid, Fibonacci's will work. As long as the trend remains valid, the Fibonacci's will work, okay? The minute those fibs stop working, the trend is over. That's it. There is no more trend. The trend's going the other way, okay? And so with the head and shoulders, it's not quite as drastic as that. It just means a short-term reversal in direction, but not necessarily in overall trend direction, okay, if that makes sense. I hope it does. And so, you know, when you think about it in those terms, right, and with a King's Crown, you can kind of simplify it as well, and I'll talk about that in a second. But as it pertains to head and shoulders, if you simplify it down into those terms and you think, well, you know, it's just a temporary reversal in direction, right, just a temporary moment where the market's going to pull back and go the other way, then it would make sense that we'd go from making lower highs and lower lows to all of a sudden higher highs, higher lows, right? Higher highs, higher lows. So from lower highs, lower lows to higher highs, higher lows. Okay, and then as soon as we see that, and on Wednesday it was round about there, I'd want to say. I think the market had already broken the neckline. Okay, but it was at that point that I said, right, I'm looking at a head and shoulders pattern here, a potential head and shoulders pattern here. And the whole trick with a head and shoulders pattern, the whole thing, you know, what we're going to be targeting is just the distance between the head and the neckline. So just the distance between that center low, which is the lowest low of the formation of the pattern, right, up to that resistance line where the market was creating all those highs. That's called the measured move. And so I literally just come in with a trend line here and just start it from the tip of the head right to the neckline, and then I literally Control C, Control V, copy and paste and I move I move the resultant copied line to where the market broke the neckline, and that's my measured move. Now if you watch what happened here, right? If you watch what happened here, okay, this was a beautiful move right to the target, okay, because in this instance, right, with my measured move, there's my target right there, right? And so you can see the market moved right to the target, but remember I said a head and shoulders is not a full-on reversal pattern. It's just a pattern that indicates we're likely going to go in the other direction temporarily. And you can see that's exactly what happened, right? The market moved right to its measured move, gave a little bit more than the measured move just for good measure, but ultimately you can see how this was not a full-on trend reversal. Instead, what's happened here is the market came up to the target and then immediately started coming right back down again in the direction it was originally headed before the head and shoulders pattern occurred. Okay, now with a King's Crown formation, I said, you know, it's easy to simplify that too, and really what I mean by that is when you think of it in terms of what a head and shoulder, what a King's Crown actually is, it's a reversal in the trend direction, right? Which means it's just a new set of fibs, right? It's just a new set of fibs. You know, by marking off the pattern itself and going through those 5 steps, right, it helps us to identify where those new fibs should actually be. But at the end of the day, that's all it is we're really looking at, isn't it? It's all we're really looking at is just a set of new fibs going in the opposite direction. And I'm trying to remember which one was it, the pound dollar? It might have been actually. I'm trying to remember which one had the bullish subcredit. There it is. Yep, it was the pound dollar. Okay, and so in this case here, right, this is the King's Crown right here. Left tip, center tip, right tip, right? So step 1, market breaks a trend line, which at the time the trend line was coming right in here, just as a rough guide. I'll just give this here as a rough guide. Right, trend line was essentially right in this direction here, like so, right? The market then took out the A, okay? And so from where the market took out the A, I then went from that high, because it's a bull crown, not a bear crown, right? So I went from that high and I drew a diagonal line to the previous bead to identify the left tip. I then took a horizontal line to anticipate roundabout where the right tip should be located. And take a look. That's exactly where this was actually a beautiful crown, because the left tip and the right tip are equal, pretty close to equal. Okay, and so just like I was saying to you before, you know, our new fibs are in here. Right, new fibs are in here. New sub A to new sub B. Okay, and then you know, we have our pullback, and then in here, this is my buy zone. Right, this is essentially what I'm looking at in terms of a buy zone. I'm looking to get in at one of the Fibonacci retracement levels of the new fibs, and ideally as close to, you know, as deep inside of the range as possible relative to that left tip, and then I'm looking to take it you know, to the anticipated de-extension. And so you can see as it happened here, this was an 86% pullback, right, in the subs and in the new subs based on the crown. And then the market rallied to exactly to the 118. So that is a completed bull crown right there, right? That is textbook perfect, completed bull crown. Okay. And so, you know, here we are in this next set of fibs, or sub fib, should I say, because our capitals are still down. There's the capital Fibonacci right there. but you can see the result, right? You see the difference there? Let me see if I can pull this up side by side for you. So this is on pound dollar, so I remember. Pound dollar and then pound Aussie. If we go back to the pound Aussie and look at the head and shoulders, you see how this was just a temporary change, right? It didn't take out the trend overall. It didn't completely reverse this trend, right? What it did was it just stopped for a second, pushed the market the other way, only to its measured move, a little bit beyond it, and then fell right back down again. Whereas with a King's Crown formation, you see the difference here? You see how the market, you know, gave us the formation. It gave us that left tip, center tip, right tip, and then subsequently did go in the complete opposite direction, right? We were downtrending. We were going, we're selling off here, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows. Then the market gave the left tip, center tip, right tip, and kind of never looked back since, right? That is the difference, ladies and gentlemen, between a head and shoulders pattern, which again is just a short-term change in direction, and a King's Crown formation, which is an all-out reversal. Okay, again, the King's Crown is a little bit easier to understand, a little bit easier to learn, and certainly a lot easier to teach because it's rule-based. It's 5 steps, 5 clean, easy steps to follow, and so that always makes for an easier teaching experience and an easier learning experience for that matter. But a head and shoulders, even though it's a little bit more difficult because it requires more spatial intelligence, it's something you develop over time, right? Something you just develop over time. But if you know what you're looking for and you understand, what it is you're looking for, then over time, the more and more you see them occurring, and more importantly, the more and more you see them occurring and working out so beautifully like this one, the better you will get at spotting these things, and that can make a really, really big, that can have a really big impact on your trading performance. It can make for a great improvement on your trading performance. It also gives you something else to trade, right? It also gives you, something else to look out for to trade. In the case of a King's Crown, you're looking for the C to D swing of the new fib. And in the case of a head and shoulders pattern, you're looking for the movement from the break of the neckline up to the measured move target. Okay. With that, everybody, really sorry again that we had some technical difficulties in getting the class up and going today. I wanted to get something out to you though, and I had wanted to go over this, the head and shoulders and the King's Crown formation with you in today's class. So at least I can get that out to you now. If you have any requests, you'd like me to throw a little video like this together for you, do send it through to me, c.guzman@kickstarttrading.com. Send me through those requests and I'll be more than happy to just put a quick recording together for you like I've done for this, and send it out to you in place of the class, okay? I'm contemplating moving the schedule for the class because at 10 a.m. we keep having these issues. So I'm thinking of moving it back an hour, maybe starting at 11 or maybe even going from 12 to 2 or something like that. I'm not sure what I'm going to do just yet, but I will communicate that with you once a final decision has been made. Just in terms of making sure we can carry on. Obviously, this whole COVID-19 business has been hard on all of us. We're just blessed that we can continue doing what we're doing, continue in our mission of building the best Forex trading team in the industry. And so, thankfully it's alive and well, and we're still kicking and doing strong, and our trading is still nice and strong. The only downside is obviously, because I'm working from home, I'm having these little internet gremlins play up every now and again. So I don't want to, stop the show altogether because I don't think that's a good thing to do, and I don't think it's necessary. I do think perhaps a modification is in order, though, even if just on a temporary basis, just until we get back into the office. Okay, with that being said, everybody, I'm going to leave it there for now. I hope this was helpful. I hope you found this useful. Again, please do send me your requests if you have any, and if not, then I will, like I said, communicate with you once a decision has been made on the scheduling for the class. And of course, I'll see all you pro members on Monday morning. Okay, have a lovely, lovely weekend. Thanks for being part of the Kickstart Trading family. And as always, until next time, to your health, wealth, and happiness, this is Christopher Guzman signing out and saying good day. Take care, my friends. Bye-bye.